What is up? Welcome to this week's episode of Lambgoat's Vanflip podcast. Today I'm joined by vocalist Matt Young of the grindcore band from Melbourne, Australia, Down Under. They are currently on tour. You're supporting like a Monomoth and Pantera, or you're in that stint as well as like a Squid Pisser little run you guys are doing, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, we've been doing a bit of a mixed bag on this tour so far. It's been like, oh man, we've done. So we started off in New York. We played with Acid Bath and Pentagram.
Yeah.
That was the first show. Then we did some shows up the East Coast with Weed Eater and Bonginator. And then we met up with the Pantera tour, and we did 4 shows, I think, with Pantera and Monomoth. And they went home for like a couple weeks. So we've just spent the last 2 weeks doing club shows with Squid Pisser and Bonginator. That's been amazing. Had a great time. And then tomorrow we meet back up with the Pantera and Monomoth.
Yeah.
Heaviest tour of the summer.
Yeah.
And continue on that for the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say it's about time to pick that back up because I know you guys on an extended run with them. In support of your latest effort, full length, that came out over the summer, A Young Person's Guide to, which also is, oddly enough, out on Housecore Records, which Phil is the head guy of Housecore Records. And we just had Jeff Tuttle of Shock Narcotic on the podcast last week. So we have like a double dose of Housecore. I want to ask, because I know you guys have been on there for a little bit, but this is your first run with like Pantera, right? Like, is this your first kind of like stint, or?
Oh no, we've done quite a bit with them actually. In 2023, we did 5 shows with them on the East Coast of the US, and then 2024 we did. They came out to Australia and they did Knotfest, so we did Knotfest with them, and then we also did a show in Adelaide, like a standalone show, and then earlier this year we did Europe. So we did. It was like Pantera, Power Trip, and King Parrot. So we did Europe as well, and now we're out doing this lot with Pantera and Monomoth. So yeah, it's been a pretty surreal experience for us over the last few years. That's for sure.
Yeah, I could imagine. As you can tell, my my great right before the podcast research was really good.
That's all right.
So I was trying to think. I was like, I saw Pantera come back on the reunion tour. I was like, have they played with them since? And I tried to do some really quick, like, Googling on Lambgoat and Googling on the actual Google. And I was like, I can't really get it off. I'll just ask them right off the top. So
yeah, that's all good, man. We got it there.
Yeah. Jeff and I spoke a little bit about like joining Housecore, but I'd like to know more about like how you guys got like Phil or Housecore's attention, just because you guys are from Australia and whatnot, and since Jeff and Shock Narcotic are from the States, it's probably easier for like Phil to just kind of like get wind of them or whatnot. But being from so far away and different continent, like how did you guys gain his attention or whatnot? Was it him finding you, or did you guys send something to him, or?
Yeah, I think initially we did like send some. When we put out our first record, "Bite Your Head Off," we did send a couple of vinyl records and a couple of CDs or something over to Housecore. That was probably in 20. When it first came out in 2012, 2013, something like that. Yeah. But I think how we got the attention was we were actually playing this festival in Australia called Cherry Rock Festival, and it's in this laneway in AC/DC Lane in Melbourne. And I Hate God were playing, and we just happened to be playing it as well. And we played the small stage, and then they were playing on the big stage that was in the laneway. We were playing inside the venue, but Jimmy Bauer and Mike Williams and Joey Lacaze happened to walk in just when we were playing, and the place was going bananas, and people were stage diving and going crazy, and we had a really, really good day, and they just happened to walk in and watch our set, and afterwards we made friends with those guys. And, obviously Jimmy and Philip are in Down. And I think Mike was maybe living at Philip's place at that point in time. So about a month after that, I got this weird email and it said, hey, guys, let's hang out. We're coming to Soundwave Festival. I think Down were playing at Soundwave Festival in Australia. And Philip signed it off, and I quickly guitarist, and I'm like, dude, I think Phil Anselmo just emailed us. Do you want to check the band email? And I started writing back, and he must have been online, and so he was writing back straight away. And sure enough, a month or so later, I think it must have been summer 2013 or 2014, maybe at the start of 2014. We just got a phone call the day before Soundwave, and they said, "Look, one of the bands has pulled out. We've got a slot for you. Do you want to do it?" And we were like, "Sure, we'll do it." And we got to play like I think it was like right after Gojira and right before Mastodon on one of the main stages, and that was a huge thing for us, at that point in time, because we were just sort of getting started, but we got there earlier in the day.
You'd think they'd recalibrate the day or something like that to.
They may be, but we who are we to argue? It's like, stick us on one of those stages, sure. Yeah, we got to play in front of like 10,000 people that day.
Prime spot.
It was really cool. And but earlier in the day, we were walking around and we met up with the Down guys and hung out and made friends, and we got up and jammed Bury Me in Smoke with them and all of that stuff. So that was cool, and that's sort of where the friendship kind of started. And a month later, we were doing our first US tour, so we went out and hung out and went out to the house and all that stuff. So. Been good friends ever since.
Yeah, I was going to say, you kind of been on the label for almost a decade now. And
yeah.
I would assume that you guys shortly signed. Shortly after that, it kind of feels like.
Yeah, we did. We, it was kind of weird. We did our first tour in 2014 in the US, and then that year we actually did 4 tours in the US and Canada. We just sort of felt like we were just going back and forth. But, we started out... playing to basically no one. And then by the end of the year, we did a tour with Down and Orange Goblin. And, we were playing, the Wilton and places like that, the Fillmore and in San Francisco. And then we went and recorded our second record, Dead Set, on Housecore Records out at Phillips Studio and all of that. So, yeah, it's been a pretty long-standing relationship for sure.
Yeah, it's cool. It's interesting to find out more about like how Phil handles housecore and stuff like that. Just because, most people only see him as like the guy from Pantera, and some people may know that he's in Down and some other projects and whatnot. But you don't really understand or kind of realize how deep into the music he actually is, because obviously he's not very vocal about housecore or his business in housecore. But if you kind of know, and that's why I was interested to find out, like, with Jeff, and if you want to expand on that, if you have any input on it, but like how he chooses the bands for housecore, or how involved is he in housecore outside of just being the giant figurehead for the label, obviously. But it sounded, Jeff made it sound like he was kind of active as far as like finding new bands and staying on the pulse and stuff.
Oh yeah, I think so for sure. I mean, I think he's a music fan just like everyone else, and I think he definitely looks for stuff that's unique, that's original, and potentially a little bit obscure. So I think they're the key ingredients, and I think that's what you kind of see on Housecore Records as well. It's sort of bands that are doing their own thing, that is sort of really kind of stand alone in what they're doing and in their sound, and that's kind of what I've come to see with the way that the bands are chosen anyway. And it's been an interesting experience, but I'm full of gratitude. It's a really unique label. It stands alone in what it does, and I've learned so much from the way that they do things and the way that they conduct business and all of that sort of stuff. So it's been nothing but a positive experience for King Parrot, that's for sure. Especially being from the other side of the world, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not easy coming over here and touring and doing all those sort of stuff. So it's nice to be able to have like a home base kind of thing where we feel welcome and feel like we've got a second home over here.
Yeah. I definitely get into that in a little bit, as far as like an Australian touring, not only the States, but the world. But I kind of want to get into, your latest album, the one that came out over the summer, Young Person's Guide to, that kind of took a little bit of time to get out. I mean, you had an EP sometime, I want to say maybe in like COVID time in 2020 or whatnot, but your last full length before that was 2017-ish or something like that, right?
That's right, man. Yeah, Ugly Produce came out right at the end of 2017, and we did a fair bit of touring in 2018 for that, and then I guess you did
the touring with Pantera and everybody else in that time frame too. So we did a whole bunch of stuff sort of off the back of Ugly Produce, and then I guess the whole COVID thing happened,
And so that kind of wiped everything out for a bunch of years. And at the time, our drummer, Todd Hansen, who was with us for 10 years, who's no longer with us now, but he's kind of living interstate up in Queensland, and where the rest of us are down in Victoria. So it made it very difficult for us to be able to kind of get together and rehearse and jam. So we just kind of took a break, like a lot of bands did. And we had some songs that we recorded actually out at the house called Compound in 20, I think we recorded those in 2017, 18 maybe. And we were like, oh, we're sitting on these 4 tracks. Let's put an EP out just to, put something out,
Yeah.
So we mixed and mastered those, and we got that out, which was cool. It was cool to do something during COVID. And then, I think as things picked up, 2022, we started touring again in Australia just to test the water, and just to see if we could actually do this, because we had a 10-year anniversary tour sort of booked around that time, and I think we rescheduled those dates in Australia like 4 or 5 times. It was ridiculous. Wow. We tried, hey, we're going to do the tour. No, we're not doing the tour. Push it back another couple of months, and it went on and on and on, and we just were like, fuck, just cancel it. Just cancel it. And we just waited and then waited till things picked up. But and as far as the new record goes, it was really when we came back over here and started touring in 2023 that kind of lit the fire, and the creative spark sort of picked up again, and we were like, man, we need to do a new record like right now. Let's go.
I asked this a lot, but I'm going to ask you, Matt, why grindcore? Like, what was the attraction, and what made you decide, like, this is the genre or this is the niche that I want to spend a lot of my creative time and efforts in?
Well, I think for me personally, it's just always had this, the energy of grindcore was always just so appealing to me. And we've had some great sort of grindcore kind of bands come out of Australia. And I'm not sure, how familiar you are with that stuff, but sort of when I was growing up as a kid in the 90s and the 2000s, grindcore was a big thing for us here in Australia. Bands like Damaged, Blood Duster. There's another great band that didn't have the same kind of popularity called Vanflip. And those bands for me were some of my favorites, and I was really heavily influenced by them because they were part of the, just the scene that was there in Melbourne for us growing up as kids. And I was just always attracted to the intensity of it, and I like the challenge of being able to work within those confines, and trying to make catchy, extreme, over the top music. That's to me, there's a huge challenge in that, and I love that. So that's kind of what attracts me to grindcore for sure.
Interesting. So so basically, like, your early days in Australia kind of shaped your musical choices and your wants and whatnot. And I kind of would like to know more about that time in Australia, because obviously that's the other side of the world for me. It's down under, and I'm above and over. But I always find it very strange and wild to talk to, like, European bands and see how the metal scene is in Europe, because obviously metal in Europe and metal in America is drastically different, because there's, a lot more genres and a lot more openness, I would say, with the metal and bands and stuff like that over there. I'd like to know more about, like, what it would be like, or what it was like for you growing up and, in the underground and the DIY, aggressive music world, because, although Australia is rather large, it's not really represented greatly worldwide as far as musically is concerned in our world. And I want to know more about, like, the underground and, like, the scene, so to speak, in Australia, because a lot of good metalcore bands and a lot of good heavy bands have come from there. So there's definitely something brewing down under,
Yeah, absolutely there is, man. I guess when you talk about all the metalcore stuff that's come out of there now, I mean, that's just gone to another level with, bands like Parkway Drive and North Lane and all of that sort of stuff. But that was kind of never really, my world, so to speak, growing up, maybe just I'm just probably a little older than that sort of scene. So it was, for me, it was more extreme stuff. We had this magazine called Hot Metal back in the day, which was it covered off on a lot of all the mainstream metal stuff, but it also did more of the extreme stuff. So that's where we kind of got introduced to bands like Morbid Angel and Cannibal Corpse, Deicide, all that sort of stuff as kids. But then in the middle of that, there was like a black and white kind of publication that covered off Australian bands. And
was that more like a zine, like more like just like a free type zine or something like that?
Yeah, it was just this it was like an inclusion. It was like stapled in the middle of it.
Okay.
And it kind of gave Australian bands a little bit more of a platform. So they would have a few feature interviews, and then they had this section called Fresh Flesh, and they would review demos, and they would have like a review of the demo, and then they would have the band's address and where you could buy merch buy the tape, buy the demo tape. So that was my thing when I was probably 12, 13, 14, as I started like writing letters, tape trading, doing all that sort of stuff with other Australian bands and getting to know people. And that's sort of where I sort of started making my first inroads to relationships, networking with people around Australia, and just sort of finding my feet, I guess, in the scene with people out there, and exploring what the heavy metal world had to offer.
Yeah.
So that was really, really cool, man. That was a really cool thing that we had. And then I guess as I got older, when I was probably like 16, I started sort of getting down to Melbourne. And Melbourne's always had a really great underground metal scene, especially with the grindcore stuff. I mean, there's so much stuff. There's even a thing called the Melbourne Grind Syndicate. There's that many grind bands in Melbourne. And so yeah, I mean, getting a fake ID at 16, trying to sneak into the shows, going into the pubs and hanging out in those kind of places with, a couple hundred sweaty people, just blowing my mind, going to see these bands and just being truly inspired, and then going, oh, it's my goal in life that I want to play a show at the Tote Hotel in Melbourne, so and then a year or so later I was doing it, with my early bands that I played in, so yeah, it was cool, man. There's such a healthy live music scene in Melbourne, and the other cities in Australia are good, but I think Melbourne sort of leads the way.
It's always interesting because like you mentioned Parkway Drive, and they're a good example of this, because most people that may think of bands from Australia would probably, in our world at least, in the heavy music world, would probably point to like North Lane or even bigger Parkway Drive and whatnot.
Right.
And you can see how that financially is viable for a band of that caliber and that size and stuff, but like the very interesting thing to me is like bands like yourself and smaller other DIY type bands that, it can't be cheap for a band like yours in the grindcore world to venture out and then tour the world, because you got to hit like a lot of markets for you guys. Yeah. You got to hit the European market. You got to hit the American market. And I would assume there's kind of probably like some island Asian kind of market that also exists, because, we see a lot of like Japanese and Vietnamese bands and metalcore and hardcore for that matter as well. But what are some of like the struggles that a band of like, an Australian band like your size, whether it's in popularity and numbers wise and whatnot, what are some of the difficulties of like getting out of your home country and like touring the world, like cost wise and just like paperwork wise and all that other bullshit that might come along with it? Because I don't think a lot of people understand. And I think it probably would draw people out more to a King Parrot show if they knew the hoopla that you probably have to jump through on a daily basis to get over here.
Yeah, right, man. Like it's crazy, man. Yeah, like that. You're right. Most people would have no idea. I mean, it's we're a fully fledged business. It's and it has been probably since 2013, 2014 when we sort of started touring over here, like regularly, and doing Europe regularly as well. And then, so we're just kind of like, we're always sort of trying to get the next thing going. And what we've been really lucky with is that, and grateful for and worked hard for as well, is we've got a great following in Australia, and we've got a great supporter base in Australia, and we got a lot of support back home. So we've worked out little strategies and ways to tour, and like we look at what other bands do, and I'm sure other bands look at what we do now, and we've formulated ways in which we can do things that are able to sort of generate income for us, and how to do it without oversaturating the markets and all of that sort of thing. So we're pretty active when it comes to playing live, and we do that quite a bit in Australia. And then when the opportunities come up for the US or Europe, that we have to strategically kind of plan tours to be able to go, okay, we've got to raise some money, we've got to be able to sort of pay for these things, and then and get over there and do it, And I think as we've done it more and more over the years, we've learned different ways. We've got better contacts. We know more and more people. We've got people that will help us out. We know tour managers and bus companies and hire companies, and we've got lawyers. Like getting those US visas is always a time consuming and costly
what is the ballpark
process?
What's the ballpark cost on something like that?
Well,
how many people come over with you on a trip like that? Because there's
5 of us in the band, so we've got people usually that we'll use over here, like TMs and stuff, like drivers and stuff like that. So we've got people that we'll use over here because it's just too costly to bring people over from Australia and pay for all that stuff, and then pay for their visa as well when we can use people over here. But it just depends with the visas. So there's a couple of different types of visas that you can get. You can get like a 1-year visa. It's like a P1. And I think that's a little bit cheaper, but I think you're kind of looking at between 5,000 and 10,000 US, depending on how many band members and all of that sort of stuff and how many people are applying. But this time, because we're a little bit more established back in 2023, and because we've done it a bit, and we've branched out and done other little projects, and I've done a couple of little other projects and done some guest appearances and stuff like that, I was able to get a O1 visa, which is like a 3-year one. And that was a little more expensive, but then obviously you get the 3 years. But I think we were kind of it's sort of getting up between kind of around that 15 to 20 grand mark.
That's kind of
3 years.
That's a lot of shirts and CDs you got to push along the way there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize, like, even before you hit the stage for the first time, you're like in the red by like a large amount.
Yeah, that's it. That's right. It's a big it's a big thing, and but that's why we've got to strategically do it. Like we've got to be able to sort of play and tour in Australia and do those things. We have little incentives that we have. Like there's a few good incentives from the Australian government in terms of like export market development grants and things like that for businesses that export overseas that we've come to be aware of. And that we get some help with from people that we can give all our accounting stuff, and the government sees that we're an Australian business exporting overseas, so that they give us some help with that sort of stuff. But as as we've gone along over the years, we've built a following, and people know who we are, and people come out and see us, and the people that do come out and see us are super supportive. And buy a lot of merch and things like that. So even if we're playing in some like sea market out in the middle of nowhere, which we've done a bit of the last few weeks, our TM just kind of laughs and he goes, "Man, like we just played a show to like 50 people and you still sold that much merch." And it was like, man, the people that like our kind of music are super passionate about it, super supportive, So, it's really cool in that sense that we can do that. And then, obviously we're going to play with Pantera and I'm on a Mars and play these ginormous stadium shows. And we're under no illusions that a lot of the Pantera fans, it's just going to go straight over their head.
Yeah. Well, and then also on the merch side, on the merch side of things, you got to fucking battle Amon Amarth and then Pantera to get any kind of merch dollars on those shows days.
Right. So, like we've just kind of come up with this new little strategy that, at these shows, and because we've done a few of these bigger sort of stadium shows now, it's like we've got songs that are slower paced, that have got slower riffs and things like that have got like catchier hooks and stuff like that. It's sort of, there's still blast beats and grind parts and all of that, but we've got enough, we've got a 25-minute, 30-minute set. So we can just pop in the songs that are a little bit more slower tempo that people can sink their teeth into. And we've just noticed the change in doing that. And we've noticed that in the merch sales, especially on these shows where we're just kind of like, okay, let's just play a few of those slower songs that have got, like we've got a song called Home is Where the Gutter Is, which has kind of got a big doomy intro. One of our older songs called Psychotherapy and Valium has got some cool slower hooks in it. And even a few of the songs off the new record have got some slower hooks. So we're just like, let's just play to what we need to do here. And we can do our full proper grind set when we're doing the headlining club shows, and people can, have that experience as well. But it's been great to kind of just learn and see how it works, because, playing blast beats in those huge stadiums.
Yeah, I was going to ask
sometimes
about that.
It can get lost, It can really get lost in the, it bounces back off the wall, or it just, playing those amphitheaters, it can just become a big boomy kind of mess. So we've learned a little bit from doing these bigger shows in the last couple of years, and we've got this great new drummer as well, Max Dangerfield, who has just got this amazing swing and feel that we've, just really embraced. And it's really changed the sound of the band over the last sort of, 5 or 6 months since he's joined us, since the new record came out. And so we're just enjoying having this new, fresh, young dude who's, stomping at the bit to be out there on the road and sort of change the dynamic in the band as well. So we've got this kind of new enthusiasm and youthful exuberance, I would say, going on in the band, which has been super cool as well.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of touch base on some of the, like, it kind of has seemed, at least from the surface, that King Parrot is kind of a humorous band. Is that? Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure if that was a goal of yours or if it just came off like that. But
yeah,
if that's the truth, how important is comedy to, like, King Parrot, as far as like balancing out maybe like the brutality of the the music or the lyrics or whatnot? Because I also saw sorry to interrupt, but I also saw somewhere that like some of your themes for some of the fucking songs would be based around feces. So I also was curious as to that.
Wow.
We'll just get into it.
We do have our roots firmly entrenched in the grindcore world. So it'd be rude of us not to sort of mess about with such topics. But we kind of try to do it in a way that's not like, hey, eat your shit or whatever. Or, we try and do it in a way that's a little bit more clever than that. And, we've got songs like, Shit on the Liver, for example. People kind of would, that's probably one of our most well-known songs and one of our most well-known videos. And kind of the thing that kind of helped get us out into the international kind of audiences. But that people think that's about drinking, like shit on the liver, obviously, but it's actually an Australian colloquialism for being angry. And we kind of picked up on that, and we made a song about it. And I think people think it's about obsessive drinking, but it's actually about being angry. But it is what it is. Whatever, we don't care. And then we've got songs like 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag, and stuff like that. But there's other meanings to that stuff, and it is humor. It's an on surface level. You'd be like, oh fuck, that's funny or whatever. But when you look a little deeper, or you might read the lyrics of the song or whatever, you can see that there's actually more to it than just the title.
Who's reading song lyrics these days, Matt?
Well, I don't know, man. To me,
who's reading this booklet
I
anymore?
loved, man. To me, that was the best thing about buying a CD back in the day was getting the booklet and reading the lyrics. I don't know if you had that same
Oh yeah,
experience or
yeah.
not.
I feel like we're probably around the same age. I'll be 42 next month, so
Yeah. I'm maybe slightly older, maybe. Um,
you get more
but that
sun
was
down there, and you age quicker down under. So it's not your fault.
that's true. But yeah, like I loved reading the lyrics, man. That was my thing. I don't know, if people are reading the lyrics anymore or not. You know, it's like, but to me, that was one of the best, most awesome things about buying that physical product was to be able to sort of.
I will say the kids are buying CDs these days, though. Oh, we got a little fuzz. Got a little break.
Hey, you there, buddy?
Yep.
Sorry, man.
No,
I lost you there.
You're good. I figured your phone had died or something like that.
Hey, no, I think it just got a little bit too hot. It's all right. I'm back.
It's all good. I'll we can kind of wrap it up here in the next 10 minutes so your phone doesn't completely melt down. I understand what that's like.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, so you were fucking, what were you literally just talking to me about? Oh yeah, reading the lyrics of the booklets and stuff. Yeah.
It was definitely one of my favorite things. But I mean, I think you can read the lyrics on iTunes and all that sort of stuff now. But I suppose with the Spotify thing, it's like I don't think they do lyrics on Spotify, do they? I don't know if that's a thing, but
they do on some bands. But like other bands like King Parrot, they probably don't have all the fucking lyrics, all on there. But I was gonna say, like right before you bounced out the last time there, kids are buying CDs these days, so take that for whatever it's worth. You know what I mean? The kids are gonna be okay. But that's good. That's good. What are some of the goals for like King Parrot? Obviously, because like I would assume you've kind of already, as a collective unit, kind of surpassed some of the goals that you've kind of set out as a band early on, just because, being in a niche genre band, there is like a glass ceiling for the most part sometimes. And, when you get to that level, you're like, oh, what is the next level? So I'm curious as to, after, a decade in the band and decade of touring the world and multiple albums at this point, what are like some of the lofty goals for King Parrot in the future?
Well, it is interesting, man. Like it is an interesting thing because like initially what our goals was to be an extreme Australian metal band that sounded Australian, and I think we were able to sort of capture that sort of sound early on. And then one of the other goals that we had was to be able to take that music and play it internationally and tour internationally. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the bands that we grew up with, like bands like Sadistic Execution and and then some of the other bands that I mentioned earlier were really popular in Australia, and they would get all of those support slots for the international touring bands that were coming over to Australia, but they never were able to kind of establish themselves as international touring acts. And one of our goals was to create our own sound that was heavily influenced by the bands that we grew up with, but also to take it out and tour internationally and play overseas. And, in those first few years of the band, we sort of ticked a lot of those boxes. So I feel like now that we did that for the first sort of 5, 6, 7 years of the band. Then we had a little break during the COVID thing and probably didn't play too much for a period of like 2 or 3 years. And now we're kind of firing it all back up again, and we're getting opportunities, and we feel like we've just put out our strongest record. And we really took the writing and the pre-production and the recording part of this a lot more seriously than we ever have before. And we really enjoyed that process, So I guess for us now, it's sort of like, really refining that songwriting craft within the realms of what we work with. And sure, we are, kind of like a grind band, I guess, but there's aspects of thrash, there's aspects of punk and hardcore punk and rock and roll stuff, and even doom and sludgy stuff in our music that we've always incorporated. So I wouldn't say like you know, like the grindcore purists would probably sort of scoff at us a little bit because we incorporate many different elements into our sound, and that's fine. That's whatever. We don't give a shit. But we just want to continue to hone our craft and get better at what we do, and work on our sound, and work on our songwriting skills, and just get better at what we do, and continue to put out good music, and hopefully that enables us to be able to tour and continue to build on what we've already done. We've really, like, we're inspired by bands like, you know, when we see bands like Napalm Death out there still doing what they're doing, and staying true to their sound, and doing, you know, like a band like Wormrot, for instance, from Singapore, you know, like great dudes, and just like relentless band. Oh my God, you know, like I see those guys doing the same sort of shit that we're doing, you know, and then I look at, you know, we just toured with Power Trip in Europe earlier in the year, and just to see them being able to sort of regroup and do what they're doing, and becoming friends with those guys, it's like, man, what an inspiring band, like just of all the shit that they went through. And you know, I look at bands like Nails as well. I love Nails, and see what they're doing within the extreme realm. So there's so much inspiration out there for us to go, let's just keep going and keep pushing it, and see what we can do, see how far we can go. I mean, we're probably the first Australian grind band or band that plays that extreme music that's played like these stadium kind of shows all over the world. So. Like we played at Wembley Arena earlier in this year. You know what I mean? It's like, what the fuck is going on in this world? Like,
that actually is pretty crazy. That actually is wild.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, like, you guys have shared the stage with a lot of people, and like even this year, Acid Bath can, you know, join that list of bands. What, like, in your opinion, what is the craziest band that you've shared stages with, whether it's on tour or just one-off shows? I mean, because again, like, you're on tour with Pantera now. You've done shows with Acid Bath or Mon Amarth, and a handful of just bands throughout Australia. Obviously, you're probably one of the go-to bands for heavy bands to tour with when they come over there. So, what is the craziest, biggest, mind-blowing band that you guys have opened for, or, you know, had on the support bill?
Well, man, it's I mean, it's hard to go, like, when you look at, for me, growing up as a kid in the 90s, and you know, like, there's not many bigger bands than Pantera, right? So it's like, obviously getting the opportunity to play with Pantera when we thought that would never ever be possible 5 years ago, that was never within the realm of possibility. So for us to now have played with Pantera in Europe, in Australia, and in the US, it's like, what the hell's going on? But then, like, coming over to the US and playing with Acid Bath and Panagram as the first show on this tour was like 3,500 people at the Brooklyn Paramount. Man, that was just such a mind-blowing experience. It was such a special night, because I was sort of, you know, I knew we were coming over here, and I was thinking, how am I going to get to see Acid Bath when I'm over here? How am I going to just get to one of those shows? But then I saw that New York show, and I was like, there's only one support on that show. Like, there's two supports on all the other shows. So, and, you know, we've met Sammy and the boys before, you know, a bunch of times in New Orleans and all of that. And we were like, I just said to our booking agent, man, hit them up, man, and just see if they want another band. And then the next minute I knew we were on the show. I'm like, it's a trick.
Hey, but you know what? You don't know if you don't ask. And that's like, I say that all the time. You never know unless you, and a lot of people just don't ask, and that's why they don't get to where they want it. They don't get what they want, or where they want to be, or whatever. You have to ask. You got to get awkward and ask.
Absolutely, man. And that's been one of the things that we've done as well for a long, long time, is, you know, I used to be, you know, intimidated by all that shit, especially growing up and trying to, you know, get established as a musician and all that sort of stuff. I get intimidated, but now I'm just like, you know, fuck it, just ask. And, you know, who knows? You know, I have conversations with people that now that, you know, and doing all the things that we're doing, you know, I have conversations with people that I never ever dreamed that I'd be having conversations with. You know, life is crazy, that's for sure. And, you know, we're just, you know, super stoked to be out here still doing it, and just enjoying summer in North America. It's been such an awesome experience being out here this summer, and
it's a hot one.
And I think for the next 3 weeks, it's just going to get better, man, because we're just going to play stadium shows with Pantera and Amon Amarth for the next like 3 or 4 weeks. So it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah, right.
No big deal. No big deal. What's some other fucking wild questions I have here written down for you? Australian stereotypes, right? So, like, which Australian stereotypes are actually true? Like, what are some that Americans would, like, we'll always hear about Crocodile Dundee or Vegemite sandwiches or fucking kangaroos or whatever it is, right? What are some that are actually true?
Well, I mean, does that sort of, it kind of goes back to that question that you were kind of, talking about before with that humor and the larrikinism, I would say, like that's something that we embody, and there's this sort of weird thing with Australians that we joke a lot. And we mess around a lot, and we love a laugh, and
you get to say sort of stuff. One of the things I'm very envious of, and not that I would go around saying this all the time, but just the ability that you guys have to say it, much like the UK. You guys say "cunt" a lot, and it's got various degrees of like meaning, and so like here in America, it's like fucking you say that's like almost like saying that's like one of the worst cuss words when actually it's not. It's just like we have this weird view of the word, but like it's just one of those things where like Americans want to say the words they can't say out loud no matter what word that is, but like I wish we had a little more leniency on the cunt word.
It's funny you say that, man, because we say that a lot, man. We do, and it's it's a versatile word, man. Just like fuck, it's a very versatile word.
It's got punch. It packs a little something. It packs a little something with it when you say it. It's like
Yeah, we've actually had a little pre-rehearsed skit that we've been saying on stage at nearly every show in North America, just trying to encourage the use of the word cunt in North America. So if you get along to a show, you'll be able to hear our little skit that we do about the word cunt. But it's like, you can be a good cunt, you can be a shit cunt, you can be a dumb cunt.
Yeah. It's just another word for something, and like, but here in America, yeah, we find it humorous that you guys find it so offensive. It's very taboo. Yeah, it's so stupid, but
but going back to the original thing, I mean, there's this sort of, and I think King Parrot really, as a band, we encapsulate Australianism pretty well, I think, because there's that larrikinism, but there's also this like aggression and angst and frustration, I guess, with being so secluded, and from the rest of the world. It's sort of, it feels like you're battling to get out of there all the time, like it feels like it's a battle to get out. And then when you finally break free and you get out, it's such a freeing experience, because people have got such a, preconceived ideas about, what Australia is. And that's all we hear when we're on the road. Oh, what about the spiders and the snakes and all that sort of shit? It's like, dude, it's more dangerous walking down the street in Baltimore or something.
I mean, I'm sure.
Like, like I mean, there's those preconceived ideas I think that people have about Australia. It's largely bullshit, And I think it's probably the same vice versa. I mean, we were getting a lot of people saying, "Oh, man, don't go to America at this point in time. It's like it's crazy over there. It's like it's stupid and all this crazy shit's going on." And I was like, "Well, I've been to America like 20 times probably in my life, and it's always been awesome, and it's always been such a great experience for me being in America." And and I was a little stressed, I guess, before we came over, but then we got to the airport. There's not as many people flying into America at the moment, so we got through customs quicker than we ever have, and there was absolutely no issue. And as soon as we get here, it's fine. So it's I think it pays sometimes just to turn the TV off and go and experience life for yourself.
Of course, yeah, it's definitely pretty fine right here, right now. What I was on the tail end of that, what are some stereotypes that like Australians have, and I could probably tell you if they're true or not.
about America.
Yeah. Like, what are some that Australians have about Americans?
Oh man,
we all have guns.
Right? Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, everyone. Like, we had all our guns taken off us years ago.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing. And but yeah, then it's we all have guns. Everyone over in America has guns, which is, I mean, I've been here enough to know that that's like, you only really see guns if you go to like the shooting range or whatever.
Yeah, it's not like you would think it's like the Wild West, how everyone talks about it, but it's kind of not. And I live in Florida where they just did, you can carry without having a concealed license now, so you can like just buy a gun and carry it, and you don't have to take the class or anything like that. But again, yeah, you don't see them on, like, no one's just walking around the street with them out or anything.
Yeah. But that is the main stereo. Like, I wouldn't say, there's too many others. I mean, without being like completely rude and disrespectful, like there's the food obesity kind of thing.
Yeah,
we're fat. Is a thing.
We're fat. Yeah, we shoot the schools up. We do.
That's Yeah, but I think the gun thing is the thing that people get most fearful about with America, is that it's happening everywhere. But man, I've walked around many streets in many cities in America, and I've rarely seen any kind of trouble.
Yeah. Myself included, I've walked along bad parts of the street and bad parts of the city without knowing, and it's probably best that I didn't know, but I never felt worried or anything. And then, like, a week later, I'm telling somebody, I'm like, oh, I was here, and they were like, you were fucking where? And I was like, yeah, I was just hanging out, walking around, and it was normal. You know what I mean? But you hear about all this, that, or the other. I got one more question for you, then I'll cut you loose here, Matt.
Sure, brother.
If King Parrot wasn't a band, this is kind of a two-parter too. So, like, if King Parrot wasn't a band, what would you be doing? And then I want to know the worst job that you did before, like, doing full-time band touring things.
All right. Okay, cool. So I'll go to okay, cool. So when I'm not doing King Parrot, I'm working at home, and I work in like drug and alcohol rehab. And so I'm a recovering addict. I've been in recovery I've been clean and sober for 13 years, almost 14 years, coming up October 27th. So when I get home, I work in drug and alcohol rehab, which I just love, man. It's my passion. It's like to help people get off drugs and alcohol, and so that's what I do when I'm at home. I've got a great job over there, and they're I'm very grateful to them for letting us do the touring thing as much as we do, which is really great. So yeah, that's what I do, and my first job that I ever got when I left high school, and I had these dreams of being a musician, and I was just getting stoned every day at high school, and I hated it. And so me and my best buddy, we thought it was a great idea to go and get a job at the abattoir, which is like the where they kill all the animals, like kill the cows and the sheep and all that, make the meat. I don't know, what do you call it over here?
Slaughterhouse.
What do you don't call it a slaughterhouse? We got a job at the slaughterhouse.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh man, did reality of life really smack me in the face after doing that fucking job, man. Jesus, that was ridiculous. So me and my buddy, we were like, I was living out the back of his house in this bungalow. Me and my buddy, and where we live, it's in Australia, it gets really cold, so we'd be getting up at like 5:15 in the morning. We didn't have cars because we were too young to drive. We were like 16. We'd get stoned, and then we'd go and stand out on the side of the road and hitchhike to work in the freezing cold, and the butchers would be the only people on the road driving past, and they would pick us up and take us to work, and we would go and work and get covered in blood every day, and work with these men who would, bully us and pick on us and give us a hard time generally most of the day. But then we would get a check at the end of the day, and we would take it to the bank and we'd get like a check for like $90 or $100 or something like that. This is back in the 90s.
Right.
and we would go and all our friends would come home from school, and me and my buddy would have money, and we'd have like booze and a bottle of whiskey and a whole bunch of weed, and we'd have a party every night. So that was the weirdest job I have. I only did that for a year or so, man. I couldn't handle it. I mean,
That's
the
crazy.
smell that comes out of that place, and man, being covered in blood every day is a pretty horrible experience.
Yeah, no, I could definitely fathom that it would be a fucking horrible time. But you know what?
Yeah.
I think it makes for a great grindcore frontman to experience that at some point in their life. So I'm sure that somehow
Right.
led into whatever it is that you came to as a creative artist and frontman for King Parrot. I'm sure that's emboldened somewhere deep in the psyche.
No doubt about it, man. No doubt about it.
Well, Matt, I appreciate your time, brother. And I hope you have a good rest of the tour with Pantera and Armand Amarth. And you guys are in Colorado tonight. That's cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's getting a little cooler for you guys on the road. I know here in Florida we've had, at least in the last 2-3 weeks, it's been like a crazy 100 degrees hot heat wave type thing. But, we're used to it down here. It's just a little more humid, so we sweat almost instantly, But I hope that you're at least having some better weather where you're at, in the mountains and stuff like that. But
beautiful, man.
I appreciate your time. If you've made it this far into the podcast, definitely check out King Parrot's latest release on Housecore Records, a young person's guide to whatever you want it to be. It's open-ended for you. Go check out. I'm assuming like you have a 30-minute set for your show's 25-minute set. That's basically, you can get a whole album's worth of King Parrot in one show if you go check out Pantera or Armand Amarth on this summer tour. Do you have anything else you want to kind of end on, Matt, while I got you here before you cut out, like a band or anything else we should check out, or a person that you've been into or whatever?
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, what have I been doing? Well, I mean, if you want to get any more King Parrot stuff, you can go to kingparrot.net. I do a little side project thing with the guys from Psychroptic and Brett from Revocation called Crisis Act, which is another cool little grind project that we do. It kind of sounds like a mix between Psychroptic and King Parrot, as you would imagine. And what else? One of the things that I've been getting into lately is that Dax Riggs from Acid Bath, his that EP that he put out, that 7 songs for Spiders. I don't know if you've checked that out, man, but I mean, it's not really metal or heavy or anything like that. But gee, man, that guy is a serious talent. Like that, and his vocals in Acid Bath are obviously incredible, and they're doing amazing things. But and he probably doesn't need any promotion from me. But that EP is incredible. I've been listening to that nonstop. It's just his vocal gymnastics on that thing are out of this world. I love it.
I think I heard about it. I hear about a lot of fucking things on Lambgoat, obviously, but there's only so many hours in the day, so I'll have to put that in the listening pile. Yep.
And then just a couple of Aussie bands that I would say for people to check out. And I always just want to say this to the underground bands that I grew up loving: Blood Duster, Damaged, Sadistic Execution, Bean Flipper. All bands that I grew up and influenced the sound of King Parrot, and they're bands that I always try and spruik in interviews and stuff when given the opportunity. So if you're looking for some cool Aussie metal stuff, you can go find that stuff for yourself and enjoy it.
Awesome, Matt. Thank you once again. I'm glad we eventually got this podcast together. I've been listening to a lot of you guys recently, more so since the last album. And again, I have to give you kudos on that. It's a great one. It's a fast 28 minute spin. You can get a couple spins in an hour. It's insane. Definitely check it out. Definitely check the boys out if you're on tour in your area or whatnot. If not, don't worry about it. Don't do it then. It's not a big deal. They do just fine without you. All right. Have a great time, Matt, and we'll see you soon, buddy.
Appreciate your support, man. Have a great one. Take care.